He's one of my favorite guests that we've ever had on this show, and I'm excited to welcome back for the second time and for our very special Thanksgiving edition of the Honky Tonk Time Machine, Bryan White. Bryan, how's it going on this fine turkey day?
I'm doing well, Glenn. How are you, buddy?
Oh, I'm doing wonderful. It's always a highlight anytime I get to talk to you, and now we can officially call you a two-time member of the Honky Tonk Time Machine, which I must say has to be right up there with one of the biggest honors you've ever received. Like right there next to the CMA Horizon Award, I'm thinking.
It's paramount. It is the top of the hill.
Seriously, though, we welcome you back. A lot has transpired since we last talked. We talked in the summer of 2020, I believe it was. And obviously the country, the world was going through a big pandemic at that time. So a lot's changed. How you been holding up since?
Man, I'd hate to sound cliche, but man, I have this day, I have everything I need. I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I'm doing great today, and I have more than enough, and I'm grateful that everybody in my family's good, and I'm just grateful today. So
well, it's a great time to be grateful. It is Thanksgiving, and Bryan, I am a huge Thanksgiving guy. How about you? Do you feel the same way about it as I do?
I do, man. I'm one of those warm and cozy guys. When the wintertime and fall rolls around, I'm immediately in my element. I know there's a lot of people that kind of loathe the holidays, and they have certain memories that are not so great that are wrapped around the holidays. But man, this time of year is just a blast for me, especially Thanksgiving. I love to eat. I love to be with family, and I love watching movies, and I'm just, I love all of it.
For me, it's my favorite holiday, and I always say it's because you get all the benefits of Christmas, the family, the food, the fellowship, but none of the pressures of having to give anybody a gift.
Yes, that's a great way to look at it. I'm going to add that to my thoughts about Thanksgiving. So
feel free to steal that. If you write a song about it, I want royalties. Give me your favorite Thanksgiving side dish, Bryan.
Mine, I guess this is a side dish, but I love the yams. I love the sweet potato and the yams, those type of dishes with the toasted marshmallows on top of it. I love it.
Who brings the yams in the White family?
My sister-in-law, she just crushes that dish, and she knows that if that's not there, I won't come over. No, I'm kidding, but she knows I love it, so she kind of gives me that look and that wink, and when I walk in, she goes, "Look over there," and it's sitting in the corner, and it's like glowing or something. It's got a halo around it,
Shout out to the sister-in-law. And on the flip side of that, least favorite, what can you do without?
Oh, gosh, it's weird because I had things that I hated as a kid that now I love them. It's weird how your palate kind of changes as you get older, but I remember I used to go to family reunions, and I'd go, why are all these old people mixing all their food together? It's so gross, and like now I don't care at all if my food touches, but there were things like cranberries and stuffing that I hated as a kid, and now those are things I really love. I don't know if that really answers your question. I actually like everything. There's not really anything I dislike now. I mean, I was not a fan of stuffing, I guess, but I really enjoy stuffing now if it's made well,
I'm with you. I didn't used to like my food touching, and now I'm completely fine with it. But I couldn't get you to trash the cranberry sauce like I thought you might. You wouldn't go that far.
Well, I'll say this. I'm not a fan of the canned stuff.
Uh-huh, yeah, with the ridges.
So if that helps.
I don't like any of it, but the canned stuff, especially the texture of it, the way it just kind of falls out of the can.
It looks like gelatin or something, Do
you have any big Thanksgiving traditions?
Oh, I think if there was a family tradition, it's the fact that my brother and I always very much. I mean, we've maybe missed a few years, but he and his family they only live about 15 minutes from us, and so we try very hard to always get both of our families together. So I guess that's a tradition. But maybe another one is we really open the can as far as we really start watching all of the Christmas movies right around this time,
My wife would be completely up for that. She would start right now, and she probably already has, actually.
Yeah.
Bryan, what are you most thankful for these days?
I'm most thankful for my family and my family's health. Everything that I do is because of them. Every decision I make, every gig that I take, or every show that I take, it's all centered around them because I'm constantly thinking about how to give them the best, and I'm thankful. I'm so thankful that God's given me such an amazing family and such an amazing life. Not a perfect life. We've had plenty of struggles and plenty of mishaps and lemons handed to us along the way, but I'm great. I'm just grateful for my family.
That's the best thing to be grateful for, because those are the ones that are sitting around the table when you're asking everybody what you're thankful for. So family, I'm glad to hear, is number one. But you've also had a brilliant career with 6 number one hits, over 5 million albums sold. And last time we talked, we got into the songs quite a bit. We heard the stories behind the songs. I want to dive a little bit deeper and talk about some of the other parts of your career that we didn't get a chance to. It is award season after all, and you were the 1996 Horizon Award winner at the CMAs, and then the new male vocalist winner at the ACMs, and that was kind of the year you blew up, 1996. I bet you're pretty thankful for those too. What was that feeling like to take something like that home?
Well, just to preface how old I am, the Horizon Award no longer exists. So just to put that in perspective a little bit. But no, when I think back to the moment my name was called, it's so hard and difficult to describe the feeling. But a lot of people will say something to the effect of it kind of feeling a little bit like you're numb, or kind of like an out-of-body experience, or like you're floating. And that's a great way to at least, sort of get it across. That sort of at least kind of dances around how you felt. It was like a very surreal, kind of a out of body experience type of experience. When somebody hands you an award for some of your work, and really in a short time. I hadn't been at it for a very long time at that point. I was maybe 3 years in. Of course, worked very hard, but I don't think you ever feel like you deserve an award. I didn't feel like I deserved it. I was grateful and very humbled, but it was. I think my favorite experience, my favorite thing about winning those awards was I couldn't get out of my head that I had at least gone to Nashville and done what I wanted to do, and I was very cognizant of the fact that not only millions of people were watching, but my family was watching, and I think it was just a great feeling to know that they were watching me, and I went there and I went after this thing, and I was just constantly thinking, I wonder what they're thinking right now. This kid left here with no money like 3 years ago, and now he's on TV. And I remember calling my dad from a payphone when I won the ACM award, and my dad was very choked up, and he told me he was proud of me. And that's probably one of my favorite memories wrapped around awards. And I mean, to me, I felt like that was really the reward for me in winning those awards. Was my family was proud of me, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, I remember you telling me that last time, is that it was very important to you when you got to Nashville to make your family proud. That was a big deal. Yeah,
I mean, because they scraped together all they had, and I knew it was. I wanted them to know that I wasn't squandering it, that I was really going to work hard for it, and I did. I'm still working hard. So.
I bet. It's always a grind, I know. Do you remember who you were up against at the ACMs and CMAs that year?
We were all kind of bunched in the same categories a lot. It was Wade Hayes and, David Lee Murphy, Rhett Akins, and a few others. I think Shania was in that Horizon category that year as well.
Oh, wow.
And some other folks. I have to go back and look, but my memory's fading, Glenn, so I'm sorry.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned Wade Hayes and David Lee Murphy. Both have been on my show as well. Both great to talk to. You actually just tweeted a big congrats to Wade. I know he's a fellow Oklahoman. He just went into the, I think, Oklahoma Music Hall of Fame. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that relationship. Did you know him growing up? You're both from Oklahoma. You're both known musicians. Or how did that develop?
Man, I don't mean to be cheesy or weird or too heavy here, but I just want to tell you, Wade is one of the most special friends in my arsenal of friends. And when we came out, I was really intimidated by Wade because he's just so talented. And, we were both, young guys, and everybody's trying to be competitive. And, we're all kind of, just trying to kick everybody's butt and be great and all that. And that's all well and fine. But I never knew that many years down the road, fate would have us start doing a lot of shows together. And then we start getting to know each other, and we have become really great friends over the past 15 years. And I've learned so much about humility by being around Wade. He is just, and I've learned about survival and fighting, and that dude is tough as nails, but he's got the softest heart, and such a great artist. And man, I consider him one of my best friends. He is just such a superior human being.
Well, I knew before talking to him that he had a tough hand dealt to him a few times in his life. But when he told us the story of exactly, what he had to overcome as far as battling stage 4 cancer, I believe twice, and overcoming it twice, it brought a tear to my eye. He is a special, special human being. Yeah,
he is, and I enjoy my time around him because it's not wasted time. It's always every conversation we have has a lot of weight to it,
Well, back in 1996, I made sure and tuned in to the CMA Awards and ACM Awards any chance I got. Recent years, I've lost a little bit of interest, although this year's awards show I tuned in and was pretty entertained. Did you get a chance? Do you still tune into those things or not?
I watched bits and pieces of it. I had an event going on, and so I was kind of busy, but I did watch some, and I caught a lot of the residual news about it afterwards, and it seems like, based on what I saw, a lot of people have said this is one of the best award CMAs that we've had in years.
I would agree with that. I think so, and I think the reason for it is because of all the tributes that they did, and they brought back a lot of the older music with Loretta Lynn and Alan Jackson, and it really does seem like that particularly 90s country has made a really strong comeback over the last couple years.
There's definitely a swell, a kind of a resurgence with that, and that kind of comes up in conversation, quite often, not just here in Nashville, but when I'm out on the road. So that's a cool thing.
Well, especially being someone who was pretty prominent during that 90s run, that's got to make you feel pretty good.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Those 90s Bryan White hits were really something else. And last time you came on, we talked a lot about Someone Else's Star. And you told us how that vocal was done in one take.
Yeah, thanks for asking. That's a really cool memory. It was a studio that it doesn't exist anymore. Again, just giving you some perspective on my age. But Billy Joe Walker Jr., who discovered me and helped me get started and produced my first 3 records, and we did some guitar vocals together after I had signed with Asylum. And Someone Else's Star was a song I brought, in a pile of songs I had, and we did it as a guitar vocal. And I didn't know any better then, I was like 19. I didn't really understand a whole lot about recording at that time. And I just thought, well, I got one shot here, from top to bottom. That's kind of how I thought. I thought, just very linear. And when we went in to actually cut the tracks for my first album, Kyle Lenning, the co-producer and the label president, he was like, man, this is great. The guitar vocal was great the way it is. We're getting away from it with the band, and the whole vibe is not the same. We need to call this studio, and they grabbed the 2-inch analog tape, and they brought that over. And so Matt Rawlings and Billy and some other people and Paul Lime, they all sort of cut some very subtle parts around this acoustic guitar vocal, and it was a one-take vocal, and it ended up being my first #1 record, and it was essentially a demo, you know.
Something that's not all that common, is it?
No, it's really not, but it's a testament to, you know, sometimes you just need to leave stuff alone. Sometimes things are captured. The first time you do them is sometimes the best, oftentimes the best performance of it, you know.
In doing these interviews with artists, I think they call it, if it's overproduced or something, too much is done to it, they call it maybe a little bit too slick.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, slickly produced. So sometimes simpler is better.
Yeah, and you know what? I think even people that, you know, are just regular casual listeners and not necessarily in music or know the terminology, I think they sense when something's overdone or not completely authentic, you know. I mean, I think everybody kind of has a barometer that can kind of sense those things, you know.
And I think that might speak to the popularity of like a Chris Stapleton or a Lainey Wilson right now, because you see a lot of simplicity in their songs, or at least in my opinion.
Without question.
Another one of those big 90s hits was Rebecca Lynn, my favorite of yours. I even told you we named our firstborn daughter after that song. That's how much I loved it. And she is just about to turn 10 years old.
Oh, wow, that's awesome.
And you were saying that Skip Ewing's demo of that was quite different from the direction you took it, or your arrangement. Am I right on that?
Yeah, it was, and I honestly, I can't take credit for, the arrangement of Rebecca Lynn. Skip's is awesome. If you ever get a chance to listen to it, I mean, it's amazing. The acoustic guitar part is just almost unplayable. It's so good, you know, and Skip's performance is great. But back to Billy Joe Walker Jr., bless his heart, he's no longer with us, but he had great ideas of how to make something, you know, my own and give it an identity. And the reason that song it sounds the way it does is because of Billy's guitar playing and his musicality. And it's very much slowed down a lot more, and it's got a little bit more of a kind of a gallopy swing kind of a feel in the feel of the song, and it's just a little more slow and sultry, you know. But I love that song, and I'm so grateful to Don Sampson and Skip Ewing for writing that one. I love those guys.
Might just make that our cover song of the night. Where can you find Skip's version?
I believe the album that Skip's version is on is called The Healin' Fire.
Okay.
And if it's not available on Apple Music, you can definitely go to YouTube and find it. It's really cool. It'll bless you to listen to it. It's awesome.
I'll definitely have to check that out. And my daughter Becca, so she helps me out with the show from time to time. She records liners for me, so she definitely wanted me to tell you hello. She is obviously that song's namesake. So.
Oh, that's so cool. Please tell her I said hey.
I will do that. And we talked a little bit about, you know, songs like that. You don't hear too much of that anymore, the songs that take you on a journey. But since then, I do feel like we've gotten a few here in recent years. Are those songs hopefully starting to make a comeback?
Well, I hope so. I have no idea what the answer to that question is, but I think what it boils down to is there are a lot of today's artists. They're really big fans of great music, and I think a lot of times when you're in the throes of huge success, there's a fear that comes with that, and I'm saying that because I know what it's like. But you kind of fear losing your platform and where you're at, and so you try to continue to do whatever it is that kind of keeps you relevant. And so I think a lot of people will probably deal with the fear of, like, they know great songs, and I think some of them are starting to make those sacrifices and go against, you know, the norm. And, you know, for instance, like the examples I can think of, I'm a huge Miranda Lambert fan, and I love Blake Shelton a lot. And I'll tell you something: those guys know, they really know great country music, and they know what a great song is. And that, I'm so grateful for The House That Built Me, and the song that just crushed me in the last 5 years is I Lived It. It was a Blake song, and those are songs that remind me of what I grew up listening to. And I'm so grateful for those artists like them that are willing to step out and go against, all of the stuff that's going on. And I'm not knocking it, but not all of it's my cup of tea. But I love that when they hear something that they believe in, they just step out and do it. And I think that's what it will take, is more artists at their level to really make those sacrifices and sort of turn it back,
I'm glad you said it that way, because I think it's difficult for a newer artist to be able to step out on that limb. It takes an established artist to do it, because if their record doesn't sell or doesn't go to number one, they can kind of handle it. But for a newer artist, they kind of have to toe that line that the label puts forth.
You're exactly right, Glenn.
But that's why it's encouraging to see a few more, even some of the newer acts, trying to step out on that limb and just put out good music, good songs. Who do you think's doing it best these days? Do you have a favorite current country artist?
I'm going to have to go with Cody Johnson.
Oh, good choice.
I've been a fan of his long before anybody knew much about him. And, again, he's one of those guys. He has a few of those songs that they've got such an ache in them. They jar something in me, man. They remind me of who I am. They make me thankful for my kids. He writes songs like that, and I'm, again, he's one of them guys that gives me hope for the future,
And his new single, Human, is pretty much exactly what we were just talking about.
Yeah, exactly.
Last time we talked, some of the songs that I didn't get to ask you about that I wanted to maybe hear some stories behind or get your thoughts on were I'm Not Supposed to Love You Anymore.
What I remember about that is, and this might surprise you, but I remember getting a cassette from Skip, and I remember I had just started. We were just killing it on the road, and I had a little time home. I lived in Creve Hall in Nashville, and I had a Chevy S10 stick shift. No, I had a Ford Ranger stick shift is what I had. And I was sitting out in my driveway, and I put this cassette in, and I just flipped out over the song, and it was just a Skip Ewing piano vocal. And for anybody that doesn't know, Skip and I together consecutively had 3 number ones in a row. 3 songs that Skip wrote for me. And I remember getting into the studio to record this, and it was just all the players were just so invested, and it was just such a great day. And we cut it at Woodland Studios. And then when I went in to do vocals later, I always had really bad sinus and allergy issues in the early part of the 90s. And so a lot of times we would book studios on the West Coast and fly to California to do vocals because it was drier, and I wouldn't have my nose was always stopped up. And so we did the vocal here in Nashville, and I never was completely 100% pleased with that vocal because I always thought I sounded stuffy, but nobody agreed with me. Everybody thought it was awesome, and I just, bucked back at them and pushed to fix things, and they're like, no, it's fine, trust me. And they were right. It was a number one record, so, I did. Apparently I was the one that was wrong, but I still hear a little bit of that stuffiness today, but so grateful, man. I mean, that song, just the reaction playing that today is still, really palpable,
The other one we didn't ask you about was That's Another Song.
That's one of my favorites. That's one of my favorite vocal performances. That one I sounded better to me. I just think that's a great country song, very, very well written, and it was a big hit. I love that melody, and I love singing that one still to this day. That the audience sings every word to that song every night, and what's crazy to me they're usually right on point, and that's how you can tell they're really big fans, because the hook changes in that song in every chorus. It's not the same hook every chorus. It's that's another time, then that's another song. So that's how you know they're big fans, when they know those changes. But I love that song. It's one of my favorites.
I can only imagine what that feeling must be like when you have a huge crowd just singing your songs back to you.
It's the greatest feeling ever. I don't think audiences know just how much of a role they play in how great the show is, or how great or how not great the show is. They bring such an energy to the table, and it matters so much. When the crowd is on, like Saturday night, I was in Troy, Illinois, and it was a sold out show for a benefit, and they were all into it, and it makes you feel so good. It's hard to explain, but you feel like you're exploding when they're excited to see you.
The other one I want to ask you about was actually written by a couple of your heroes. I know for a fact, because you told me, that Steve Wariner is probably your biggest influence in life, and now you've become friends with him. And then Bill Anderson co-wrote this as well. One Small Miracle. How'd that land in your lap?
Steve Wariner knew that I was looking for songs and writing a bunch for my third album, The Right Place. And he sent me a DAT out on the road. And I was on the bus, and I had just gotten a package from FedEx, and it had a ton of cassettes and CDs and DATs, and Steve had sent me a DAT just full of new tunes that he had written. And the one on there that just completely blew my shoes off was One Small Miracle. And I called Steve, and I said, hey, does anybody have that on hold, or is anybody doing anything with that? And he goes, nope, it's all yours. And I was like a little kid doing the happy dance, just in a candy store. I love that song. I love the traditional aspect of it, and it gave me, not only was it a great song, but it gave me an opportunity to bring Steve in on something and be a part of something with my hero. And I humbly asked Steve if he would sing harmony on it, like sing the low harmony on it, and he did. And the only thing I regret is I was so busy that year, I was not able to be there when we had him scheduled to do his background vocals. And so the best I got to, the most present I could be was just over the phone. They played a little bit of it for me over the phone. I was probably no telling where I was, but it was really a big deal for me to have Steve sing on something with me.
Yeah, I remember you talking very glowingly of Steve Wariner and how much he meant to you. One of the reasons you got into the music business yourself. So, yeah, I bet that was kind of a full circle experience to be able to experience that with him. Yeah,
there's just no way to really put into words, It's just literally watching a dream come true just play out right in front of you,
You still stay in touch with Steve?
I do. Talk about it, another full circle thing. Steve called me about a month and a half ago, and he said, I want you to be at this. I'm being inducted into the Nashville Songwriters Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
We have a table. We'd love for you guys to sit at our table with us and be there. And I was in Michigan the night before, it kind of made me panic. And I had driven to Michigan to do this little acoustic show, and before I even thought about it, I just said, I will be there. I don't know how I'll get there, but I will be there. I'm not missing that, and I made it just in enough time, and to be able to, well, first of all, to be, when you're thought of, it's such a special thing when somebody thinks of you to include you in something. And, when you get a phone call from a guy like Steve, asking you to be a part of it, it's just the greatest feeling in the world,
And what a perfect inductee into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. So many great songs he's penned.
Yeah, there's nobody more deserving than Steve, man. He is the quintessential triple threat: songwriter, player, singer, artist. He does all of them.
And you've penned a fair share of pretty darn good songs too. And we've talked about a lot of them in our previous interview. One that I didn't ask you about, and I didn't even realize that you co-wrote this. Imagine That for Diamond Rio.
I did. Co-wrote that with John Tiro and Derek George. And for anybody that doesn't know, we all three co-wrote So Much for Pretending together as well.
That's awesome, and I had no idea. So you'd end up taking So Much for Pretending to number one. Diamond Rio got Imagine That. When you first wrote it, were you thinking about recording it, or did you write it with them in mind, or what?
No, it sort of wasn't until that song that I started kind of thinking in that direction. I up until that point, I was always trying to create for myself, and then, you know, a lot of stuff started getting recorded, and I started thinking, you know, when I would sit down, you know, to write, I started thinking a little bit more peripherally, you know. If we wrote a song that was not necessarily leaned in my direction, I would at least kind of start thinking, well, I wonder who this might work for. I just started thinking a little bit more broad at that point, you know.
Marty Rowe delivered that flawlessly, but as I think about it now, I feel like that would have sounded really good with your voice on it, too.
I actually have a demo of, that's how they heard the song, as we, you know, cut a demo, and I'm singing the demo. I'll have to send it to you sometime, let you check it out.
Please do that. I would love to hear it. Do you ever play it at shows or anything?
I actually did Imagine That. I played in St. Louis on Sunday, and I did a songwriter show, and I played that song.
That's awesome. Another reason to go see Bryan White next time he rolls through. Now, speaking of cutting demos, you actually started out, like a lot of artists do, as a demo singer in Nashville, and I think was it Glenn Campbell's publishing company that you first started working for?
Yeah, that's the first publishing company that gave me a chance. Glenn signed me to a publishing deal, and I think I was maybe 20 years old, and that's where I started cutting my teeth as a songwriter. I think it was like maybe a bi-weekly draw or a monthly draw. That's where I started making a little bit of money, and my other thing where I helped pay my rent was I started kind of developing a little bit of a rapport with writers and publishers, and I got to where I was doing, you know, 10 or 15 demos a week, you know, singing demos for songwriters and publishers, you know.
Did you get to know Glenn at all during that time?
I'm very humbled and honored to say that Glenn was my friend, and I spent a lot of years and a lot of quality time with Glenn. We've spent a lot of time in Arizona with him and on the golf course, and we sang a lot together, and he was just a tremendous soul, man.
That's awesome. Favorite Glenn Campbell song, if you had to pick?
Gosh, that's a tough one. That came out of left field, Glenn. I wasn't prepared for that. I'm going to say Still Within the Sound of My Voice. That's one of them. Wichita Lineman.
Mm-hmm.
And Where's the Playground, Susie? That's one of my favorites. Man, I mean, I could literally just go on forever. There's so many of them, but those are three that are really close to my heart for sure.
I figured I'd get Wichita Lineman from you. The other two are nice additions as well, and then I'll throw out there Gentle on My Mind.
Oh, man. Yeah.
During that time, while you're cutting demos at Glenn Campbell's publishing company, did any of those recordings go on to be cut by major artists?
One off the top of my head that went to number one was a song. It was called She Can't Say I Didn't Cry. It was a Rick Trevino song, and it went to number one. I did the demo for that song. Several others that were, you know, they weren't, I don't think they were hits, but it was so cool that they ended up cutting it. And I remember when Shenandoah cut a song that I sang the demo for, and all I wanted to do is go buy the album so I could hear, you know, Marty Raven, you know, sing something that I sang, you know. I mean, I just thought it was so cool that Marty heard me sing, you know.
Yeah, because I guess you got to realize a lot of those demos that you cut, they might not become hits, but they might be album tracks for artists and stuff like that.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, it's crazy. We started the show talking about how thankful you are, and you've been blessed to work with so many great people, Glenn Campbell, Steve Wariner. How about Shania Twain? You told us the story of From This Moment On last time you came. And lo and behold, she's got a comeback going right now. She's going on tour, new album, new song. I'm sure you're happy for Shania.
Yeah, I think that's exciting. I know a lot of her fans are, over the moon about it. And I hope that this year, I hope my schedule affords me to be able to catch one of those shows. I'd love to see it. I'd love to say hi to her. It's been a minute since I've actually been in the same room with her. I was at the induction for Steve for the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Shania was also inducted the same night, but she did not attend due to her schedule of recording this new album. And so I was kind of excited. I thought maybe I was going to bump into her, but she wasn't able to make it. So, but yeah, to answer your question, I'm super excited, and I love the single she released not long ago. I thought it was great. So
pretty cool to see her back in the mix. And from this moment on, I mean, that's got to be one of the biggest songs you've been a part of.
Yeah, without question, and still very, very grateful to be a part of it.
Now, before we close our interview with you, since we've talked last, I've started asking artists their Mount Rushmore of country music. So, top 4 country singers of all time, artists that kind of define the genre. Can you pin it down?
Yeah, but there's always tons more, and it's so subjective because everybody's, it's all opinions and what impacted people the most. So, I'll probably give my Mount Rushmore, and people will scratch their head and go, no, but you forgot about this guy. But, you can't win them all, and you can't please everybody. So I'll do my best here. I'm gonna start with Steve Wariner, of course. I'm gonna say Merle Haggard, and then I'm gonna say Ronnie Millsap. And gosh, I mean, how do you do this? This is almost impossible. There's just too many.
That's exactly why we want to get people talking, and also your opinion is important to us.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to drop Vince Gill in there.
Oh, I like that.
So
I like that quite a bit. So Vince Gill, Merle Haggard, Steve Wariner, and Ronnie Millsap.
I don't think you can go wrong with that right there.
That's pretty good. I'm going to throw mine at you, and tell me if you disagree. So we agree on Merle. I have Garth Brooks in there just because of what he did for country in the 90s. And
right.
I threw in George Strait and Hank Williams just for starting it all. Would you agree?
I love it.
Disagree with any of those?
I love it. Yes.
Bryan, it's been a real pleasure catching up with you again. I wanted to get an idea from you if you had any new projects or anything you got going on right now that you'd like to promote or get out there to your tons of fans that are listening here tonight.
I haven't mentioned this yet. I just finished writing a Christmas song with my son, my youngest son, Jackson, and we just finished the track, and we're mixing it right now. And Glenn, I don't think I've been this excited about something since I probably released my first album. And we're a little bit behind the 8 ball, but it's going to be out really soon. And I'm so proud of this kid. It's been such a neat process. It's such a teachable process to be alongside him working on music together. He's a developing singer and playing keyboards, and he's learning a lot and developing really super. He's really on the fast track as far as just talent. I'm watching him grow and grow and grow, and his name is Jackson White. So that's where my head is right now, currently right now. So
that's awesome. How old is Jackson now?
He's 17.
Okay, very, very cool.
Yeah. And then aside from that, I know a lot of fans want to know where I'm going to be. I'm still traveling on the weekends quite a bit, so they can go to bryanwhite.com and see where I'm going to be, and producing records on people and staying busy as a songwriter. So I'm kind of spinning plates, as they say. So
yeah, lots going on, lots of irons in the fire. Have Debbie send us that song. I'm always looking for Christmas songs to play, so I'll absolutely play it. Whether you have it in time for this year or next year, whatever, we would love to have it.
Oh, wow, that's really nice of you, man. Thank you. I'll definitely do that.
All right. Anything else you'd like to mention to your fans who are tuning in before we let you go, Bryan?
Well, I can never overstate how grateful I am for their support. I'm amazed every day still at how this music that I recorded back then still continues to connect me to people and take me all over the planet. So I just want to let everybody know how grateful I still am. Look forward to seeing everybody out on the road.
And we're very grateful to have you. You've been an excellent guest twice now. And if you ever want to come back on a third time, let's do it.
Man, anytime. You let me know. I just hope we don't run out of stuff to talk about.
Yeah, I'm sure we could find something. Talk football next time, maybe. It's been a pleasure, Bryan. Thanks so much. Have a happy Thanksgiving.
And the same to you, sir.
Bryan White, now a two-time member of the Honky Tonk Time Machine, spending Thanksgiving with us on K103.